Hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome into the Big Hit. Today's show, all about that money, baby. The first segment is a betting segment with Luke Smeltz and myself. And then we're gonna go into, is he worth that money? No, we're not talking about any of us paying thousands of dollars just to do some stupid classes here before we get here to look good for all of you. No, we're talking about NFL contracts. Elliott Hicks, Joey Crispin, Jake Spagnol. Sit down, shut up, drink a beer.
Welcome everyone back to yet another episode of The Big Hit.
Welcome, ladies, gentlemen, everyone, to The Big Hit.
Welcome to today's episode of The Big Hit. I'm Katie Dotz.
Sports Jeopardy. I'm assuming everyone already knows how to play Jeopardy.
And welcome to The Big Hit's 2019 edition of Scrap for Your City.
Yabba dabba, what it do, what it does, what it did. Welcome into the Big Hit. We're changing it up here for all you degenerate gamblers. We're having a little bit of a betting segment. Luke Smeltz is the lead. I'm Jake Taylor, so let's just get right into it. You know, gambling's legal in the state of Pennsylvania, other places too. Let's get at it.
All right, so we're going to start off with a little bit of NFL talk. We're just going to go through some games that we suggest you bet on. Maybe we'll hit, maybe we won't, but it's all part of the fun. So for the first game we have the Miami Dolphins versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. Miami Dolphins are the dogs in this one. They are getting 16.5 points, and the Steelers are giving 16.5. I like the Dolphins to cover in this one simply because the Steelers are well known to not show up in big games, or well, not big games, but games where they're expected to win. If you look at Mike Tomlin's record in games where they are favored against teams with bad records, I think he's like 0 in his last 12 against really poor teams. And so in this one, you want to go with the Dolphins to cover. It's a lot of points that they're getting, and I don't see why they won't be able to. You have anything to say about that?
Yeah, I'm not, I guess I'm just being biased here. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers defense is out the end of the stuff on to it. Injury is going to really hurt them up the middle, but Heinz Field at home, them terrible towels going to have Fitzmagic pulling a rabbit out of a hat. I don't even know what he's going to be able to be capable of with that crowd there in Pittsburgh. Late night Heinz Field, get him in the red zone. That ketchup's just going to be drowning. He's going to be drowning over there. So I'm not sure how many points they're going to put up, but you know what? Like you said, it's all in the fun.
Yep. For another game, we've got the Green Bay Packers and Kansas City Chiefs. Green Bay Packers are giving 4, and the Chiefs are getting 4. I think this line should be a little bit further apart with Patrick Mahomes not playing. I know it's been kind of teased early week that, oh, maybe he will, but there's no chance he's going to play. The Chiefs' defense is not very good. Don't get that mistaken with the performance that they had last week with having 8+ sacks. Aaron Rodgers is going to torch them in prime time. It's going to be a tough one. I just don't see the Chiefs being able to put up much of a fight. This could be easily a rout. So definitely we're going with the Packers on that one. They're giving 4 points.
Yeah, it's kind of going to be like Aaron Rodgers is kind of going to lead the Oregon Trail here. The Chiefs have no chance in this one. They're covering the spread. I mean, Zooey mama, did you see Aaron Rodgers last week slinging the ball? He played a perfect game, and you're going against that secondary in Kansas City. They don't know whether to cry or rhyme their watch in there. He's just going to be slinging it deep. He doesn't even need Devontae Adams to be putting up those kind of points. So, yeah, good night, Jim Kite, Kansas City. I would not be betting on them.
It's Aaron Rodgers' bad man season. Watch out. For the next game, we got the New York Giants versus the Detroit Lions. New York Giants are getting 7, and the Lions are giving 7. So I like the Lions in this game. The record doesn't look good, but if you look at who they've played this year and how tight they've played teams, probably giving away some games they should have won. I think there's definitely a culture change going on there. They play good teams well, and I just think there's going to be a difference in the talent-wise and the coaching in that game. The only thing that worries me is Saquon Barkley getting loose. I know, what was his name? Snack.
Snack.
I know he is injured.
Snack Harrison. Yeah.
Snack Harrison. I know he's injured. I'm not sure if he's playing. Will that make much of a difference? I don't know. It depends, what Saquon Barkley can do. But at 7 points, I do like the Lions. You still got Matthew Stafford. That offense has been hot. So I'm taking the Lions in that one.
Oh, 100%. Like you said, they're a few bad calls away from being of this game being looked at completely different. Stafford is a man on the mission right now. Marvin Jones 4 touchdowns last week. Kenny Galladay was a little bit quiet against a great defense over there in Minnesota, and I still think he put up decent numbers. Yeah, the talent on this, the rosters, the coaching, top to bottom, Lions all the way.
Yeah. And for our last NFL game, we've got the Los Angeles Chargers versus the Chicago Bears. The Chargers are getting 4 points, and the Bears are giving 4, which after watching Mitch Trubisky and that offense play, I'm not too sure about that. I guess the same can be said about the Chargers, but I do like the Chargers roster a little bit better, especially on the offensive side of the ball, and they've at least showed the ability to put up points. Little bit of some gaffes here and there with fumbles costing them games, but I do like their offense better. I think they'll have the ability to score points, where the Bears is just their ineptitude on offense is just really going to kill them. And that's hurting their defense we're now seeing. That defense looked unstoppable at the beginning of the year. But the more you keep them out on the field, the more they wear down. And to be fair, I don't think they're going to be able to cover the 4 points without being able to score. They're going to need a lot of help from that defense.
100%. And if they play Trubisky, I definitely would not bet on the Bears. But Daniels can come in there. He shake a little bit of things up, get the offense going. I don't know. They're going to have to make a quarterback change if you want to be confident whatsoever in the Bears' offense, in them scoring. They're definitely going to have to make some personnel changes. Matt Nagy's too good of a coach. That defense is way too good. They're wasting the talent there with Trubisky. So, yeah, if he's out of there, if he comes out, he's not starting, look at this bet a little bit differently. But if he's in there, go with the Chargers.
Yep. All right, and now we're going to switch over to some college football. For the college football games, we got some bigger games, we got some mid-range games, but I think there's a little bit for everyone there. First game, we got the U taking on Pittsburgh. Miami's getting 6 points, and Pittsburgh's giving 6. Pittsburgh's a hot team right now. They took some really good teams down to the wire. Penn State beat UCF, had a bad game, early season loss, but they could be a 10-win team this year, and Miami is just a complete mess. They don't know what they're really doing down there. They're giving away games, big shootouts. Sometimes the offense looks good. Sometimes the defense looks bad. It's just a complete mess down there. So I like Pittsburgh. They're the more consistent team. Their defense is unreal for even the injuries they have. So I'm taking the Pitt Panthers in that one.
Honestly, last time I bet on the U, they lost, I think it was 44-0. And but thankfully, they gave me the nickname Hot Take Jake because if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be here today. But honestly, I'm still betting on the Pittsburgh Panthers. They're coming out hot. They beat them once before when they were that good. Was it 2 years ago? Pitt beat them once. Kenny Pickett can do it again.
U's not back. But for our next game, we're going to go to Texas versus TCU, and this is a pick'em, which I find crazy considering what TCU has done against the good teams they played this year. Yes, they are at home, but I don't think this makes it a pick'em. I'm going Texas. I got Sam Ehlinger, who is one of the best quarterbacks in the country. The guy just wins. He wills his team to victories. I'm getting the better talent, and the only thing I'm not getting is home field advantage. But TCU lost to Iowa State this year, and they also got upset by SMU, I believe. So in their big games, they just haven't really showed me anything, and I know what I'm getting with Texas. So I'm going with Texas in the pick'em.
I'm taking a little playbook from Mike Costa here. A Longhorn versus a Horned Frog. Who's going to win in that battle? Horned Frog all day, all night. Lock it in.
Hey, that's why it's a pick'em. For our next game, this is more of a game that you do not want to bet on. It might seem like a good idea with these games, but when there's a lot of points involved, I try to stay away from them. We got Arkansas versus Alabama. Arkansas is getting 31.5 points. Alabama giving 31.5. Yeah, I don't think Tua is playing, but even so, 31.5 is a lot of points to be able to get for Alabama, so I wouldn't trust it in that sense. And then also, Arkansas is so bad that I don't even know if they'll be able to cover that. So I would just completely stay away from this game. Hey, you have anything to add with that?
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm staying away. I'm keeping my money in my pocket.
Yeah, save your money on that one. But a game that you may want to bet is Notre Dame, Michigan. Notre Dame is the favorite. They are giving 1 point, and Michigan is getting 1. This line has changed. It's been Michigan favored, Notre Dame favored. So it's going back and forth. It's tight. It might change into a pick'em, but I'm putting my money on Notre Dame. I like Ian Book. I like their coach better. I like what they're doing at Notre Dame. And Michigan this year has not looked good, especially early in games. So take your money, put it on Notre Dame.
Yeah. You know what? I've seen Rudy a few times, and I'm never betting on the Harbaugh. That's it. Yeah.
That's all you got?
That's all I got to say about that game.
That's fair. And for our last segment for what we have here on some sports betting, we're going to go to the NBA. Since it's early season NBA, we're going to take a look at odds to win the championship. So I'm just going to rattle through them, and we'll see where you should put your money. Right now, we got Clippers at the best odds, 7-2, Lakers 4-1, Bucks 6-1, and then you have the 76ers and Rockets at 8-1. For me, I think the Clippers look like the best team in the league. They look like a juggernaut. I think they're going to run away with it. I'm going to probably put my money there. I'm not going to earn as much, but if you're looking to put your money and get the best value out of these teams, I'm thinking the 76ers.
Sixers, 100%.
Yeah, I'm thinking the 76ers is where you're going to want to put your money if you're looking to get the best value back. Teams I really don't like, Rockets, Lakers might be there, depends on LeBron. Antetokounmpo, Bucks could be it. But I think the 76ers is where you want to go.
100%. I agree with that completely. 76ers, listen, the Eagles are going to let the city down this year. 76ers are going to lift them back up, make it to the final, possibly even win that final. The Clippers, though, are stacked. I mean, they won opening night against LeBron and AD, and they didn't have Paul George. That's all you got to say. Basketball is that sport where the best team always wins, the best players always win.
Yep.
So you can't go wrong with either of those teams, honestly.
I agree. Those are the teams I'm looking to put my money on, and I think you should as well.
All right, well, thanks for listening. Thank you, Luke, for making all of our viewers much more money than they were before they watched this segment. Stay tuned to The Big Hit.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another segment here on The Big Hit. I'm joined by Joey Chrisman and Elliot Hicks. I myself am Jake Spagnol, and we're going to talk about players in the NFL who have really big contracts and talk about, do they deserve it based off personal performance and so on and so forth. So first one up the bat, we have Kirk Cousins, got paid in 2018, a 3-year deal worth $84 million now for the Vikings. So what do you guys think? Joey, I'll start with you.
I think it could be worth it if he, makes the playoffs this year. They're 5-2 right now, but early in the season he did struggle a lot. He got some into it with Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs. They are winning right now. I don't know if right now I can maybe say that it's worth the money, but it could definitely show that it is if he can somehow make it to the playoffs and show the city of Minnesota that they got a good quarterback.
Well, I think the city of Minnesota did get a good quarterback, but I don't think that Kirk Cousins is worth anywhere near the money that he's getting paid. Looking at the statistics in 2019, he's making almost 2 times as much as any other Minnesota Viking. And a lot of what I feel like a team's success will come into is you make sure that one player isn't going to be paid exorbitantly more than any other, and you want to be able to distribute your cap in effective ways to have a really good team. That's why the Patriots, it's part of why they've been successful for such a long time. Not only Tom Brady just slapping Father Time in the face every year, performing at the top of the game. What is he now, 42, 43 years old?
Who knows, probably 60.
Yeah, he's getting up there, and he shows no signs of stopping. But part of the reason is he takes his fair share of money, but he doesn't eat up too much of New England's cap. Looking at the Vikings cap situation, Kirk Cousins is taking up 15% of Minnesota's cap in 2019. And when we look at some of these other names on this list, that's, I believe, the highest amount of any individual on the team. Kirk Cousins just has not been good enough to warrant that. If he was at the top level of quarterbacks in the NFL, he's definitely worth it. If you have a quarterback that can win you Super Bowls, pay him as much as you can afford, pay him as much as you want to, throw hundreds of millions at him. Kirk Cousins has been nowhere near that player. I don't think he's ever really going to be that player. He's an all right quarterback. He's in the upper half, but he's definitely not worth being the seventh highest paid player in 2019. He's not worth the money.
Yeah, especially when you consider that it's a fully guaranteed deal, so no matter if they decide to let go of him, he gets injured, who knows, he gets it no matter what. So I think for sure, I agree with you, Joey, that if he doesn't make the playoffs, it's just going to seem like the Minnesota Vikings are just throwing their money away on someone who was slightly better than Case Keenum, debatably. I mean, so who knows? But someone I think who so far has proven himself would be Aaron Donald with his deal that he got from the Rams last year. 6 years, $135 million. What's your take on that, Elliot?
Well, I think contrary to the Minnesota Vikings, the Rams cap situation is very good. We'll talk about some other Rams players here in a couple of minutes, but Aaron Donald, he is making a lot of money. He's the highest paid, I think the highest paid defensive player, making the 15th highest paid player in the NFL this season, taking up just about 9% of the Rams cap. But he's just been dominant. I think a good defensive lineman has become so underrated in today's NFL. A lot of the guys you remember from history being very good, going all the way back to guys like Mean Joe Green or Ed Too Tall Jones, guys like that. Having a good, strong defensive lineman is very key to success, and I think that keeps the Rams balanced very well. Obviously, they have a lot of talent on offense, but he's really been the dominant player on defense. I'd say he is worth the money that he's getting paid.
Yeah, going off with you said, Elliot. The guy, he was rated the #1 player in the NFL last year and defensive player last year as well. So, I mean, the Rams, they are 3-3 right now, but the defense is very dominant. They recently got Jalen Ramsey, so that can limit maybe Aaron Donald getting to the quarterback a little bit more, considering that the coverage will be better. But I definitely think he is worth the money. He's still dominant defensive tackle, and I think, even though, like you said, the 9% of the cap, I think he's worth it.
Yeah, and especially considering this so far this year, statistically, he's not putting up the number of sacks he did last year, TFLs or in general, but he did lose Ndamukong Suh and a couple other key players who aren't performing at as high a level as they were last year. But so far, he should have been MVP last year, so just going into the second year in this deal, he's definitely deserved it now. Next, we'll probably go to one of the only people that I say flat out I don't think deserves it is Odell Beckham Jr. It was reworked slightly. It was a deal that started, the first year was with the Giants in 2018 and then was traded to the Browns. So he's already gotten a fair amount of signing bonus and extra money. So it was a 5-year deal worth around $90 million. So does anyone wants to jump on that one, Joey?
Well, I don't think he deserves it, honestly, because in the beginning of the season, he was not performing as well as he did when he was on the Giants. The Browns are 2-5 right now, 2-4, 2-5 right now. I really don't think that he deserves any of it. Maybe it's not all his fault because Baker has not been playing the way he was supposed to be, or people thought he was going to be. People thought he was going to be, one of the best quarterbacks in the league. But now he can't lead the team to a 500% record. So I really, 5 years, $90 million for Odell Beckham Jr. playing on 2-4 Browns. No, I definitely do not think he's worth that much money.
So we'll set aside some of the character issues we've seen out of Odell Beckham Jr. Obviously, those have been downplayed with the complete meltdown of Antonio Brown that we saw this offseason. Everything that any other player has done in the NFL, really, short of criminal charges, has looked a lot more tame. We'll talk about what he's done on the field. I think that a good wide receiver obviously is going to need a good quarterback, and Baker Mayfield just has not been that for the Cleveland Browns. So I think that in terms of the dollars that Odell Beckham Jr. is getting paid, I think that's fine. He's not taking up an exorbitant amount of cap space, about 7% of the cap, only about $2 million more than any other Browns player. But it's a young Browns team that's just come off of a rebuild, or whatever you want to call what they've been doing the last couple of years. They actually have hype on their side, or they had hype on their side at the beginning of the year. Obviously, they're not going to be a Super Bowl team. They're probably not even going to be a playoff team, but they might be because the AFC North is just downright terrible this year. If Baker Mayfield is able to develop into a good quarterback, obviously better than the likes of Kirk Cousins, to become elite and very competitive in the AFC North, having a guy like Odell Beckham Jr. in the last couple of years of his deal, that may be well worth the money. Right now, I'm going to say no. That could change to a yes 2 years from now, depending on how Baker Mayfield's done at quarterback for the Browns.
Yeah, and I think what I'd add to that is that even other than the year where he tore his Achilles and missed the whole season, basically, he puts up numbers, he really does, but at the same point, he isn't the game changer. He isn't like you looked at Odell Beckham Jr. like, okay, we have him on our team, we're going to win games. He's only been to the playoffs one time with the Giants when I believe they were 10-6 that year, and that was their best chance to do anything. But I think he still needs time, and like you said, the Browns are very young. But up to this point, I don't think, just because he's been personally, has put up a lot of stats and good numbers, he hasn't shown that he's a clutch player when, for getting games and sort of things. But time will tell. Now, going back to the Rams, I as Elliot said, we already talked about Aaron Donald, but Jared Goff, 4 years, $134 million, just got paid at the beginning of the season, and so far at this point, he's really been struggling, but that can be a multiple of different factors. But Joey, do you have any thoughts on that?
I honestly do think he's worth it. I mean, when you pay money to a guy, you want to be a franchise quarterback, and I really do think Jared Goff is a franchise quarterback. I just think he needs more time to develop because he got drafted like 2 or 3 years ago.
This would be year 3 for him.
So I think he does need more time to develop into like a true franchise quarterback. They're obviously keeping him around for another 4 years. I think in those 4 years, Sean McVay's going to develop him a little bit more, possibly make him back to the playoffs, maybe the Super Bowl again. Right now, like you said, he's been struggling a little bit. They're 4-3 right now, which is not horrible, but it's not like the worst record in the NFL. But 4 years, $134 million. I do believe that he is worth it because the Rams, they need a quarterback. The previous years they haven't had one. Since he came here, it's been actually good. So I do think he's worth it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that, honestly. If you have a guy taking you to the Super Bowl in one of his first years in the NFL, he is the franchise quarterback for your team. Jared Goff has shown that. Obviously, he's going through a little bit of struggles. He's obviously not going to play great every year. I think that he very easily could develop into a franchise quarterback that just is taking the Rams to the top almost every year. This was the easiest decision on this list for me. He's definitely worth the money. Again, the Rams' cap situation is good enough. They're not really overpaying any player to any exorbitant amount. I really like this deal, and I think that Goff's definitely worth the money, and I'm sure this may not even be his biggest contract, and maybe his next contract could be even bigger.
Yeah. Originally, before I wrote down that I didn't think he deserved it, but I did consider things he doesn't have. He doesn't have that great of an offensive line anymore. Todd Gurley's a little banged up. I mean, they do have big offensive pieces, but overall, the whole team has been struggling, so I think they're in a point where they need to start paying some other outside players to come in and assist. And even then, with the cap space, they have the space to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So
right. So it looks like we convinced you. I see the all capitals.
All capitals.
No,
nope. And I
guess we convinced
As we went, I was like, well, he has got some things. If we switch to a different quarterback, and this one is actually, I think, it's very up in the air. Matt Ryan, obviously, a couple years ago, went to the Super Bowl MVP, and about a year or two after that, got his 5-year extension worth $150 million. I'm kind of up in the air on it, so what do you guys say?
I honestly don't think he deserves it because when you give money to a quarterback, you expect him to win games. Yes, he has a lot of stats. He throws for a lot of yards and maybe a lot of touchdowns, but you pay somebody to win you games. He has not been doing that in the past 2 years. They're 1-6 right now, and the only win they have is against Tennessee, one of those teams. But literally, he has not been winning at all. He has Julio Jones, which is one of the best receivers in the league, and yet still cannot win. Maybe his defense is terrible. I believe it is. But still, that can't be a reason that you're 1-6. That's ridiculous. I do not think he deserves that money. Case closed. I'm sorry.
Yeah, honestly, I think that Super Bowl loss just took all the wind out of the Falcons' sails. They really haven't looked competitive ever since that game and that comeback victory by New England. Atlanta will forever be haunted by 28-3, I'm sure. But I mean, Matt Ryan, he has been an above-average quarterback in a lot of his years. He's been able to put up the stats, like you said. He just hasn't been able to win games a lot. Atlanta really was never that good his first few years there. They were able to get a couple playoff runs, able to get to the Super Bowl, and they just haven't really been good ever since. Having Julio Jones there, I mean, Julio Jones has had his struggles, but Matt Ryan just really hasn't got the job done. I have a yes here on the sheet, but I think it's up in the air too. I don't know that it could be. I don't know that I can make a permanent decision on that. I think there are definitely arguments for and against that. But if you go strictly just off of winning games, the fact he doesn't have a Super Bowl ring, he really hasn't got the job done in enough years. I'd say he doesn't deserve to be as high paid as he is right now.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I do think within reason he deserves it. Last year he was one of the only quarterbacks that did make the playoffs, but still personally succeeded. But obviously, personal success and achievements aren't when you're in a team sport. So I think after this year, because I think this year's already going to be in the ground, they're done. But he still has 2-3 years to really prove that he deserves this money. But we'll go back to the Rams, and it'll be the final player is Todd Gurley. And I think this is a little more harder because he's been almost in every other season really good, not so good, and he has knee issues. So that's another thing I would question to it, based off everything that he's been on his injury report, where he's been, and how much he hasn't done a whole lot this year. I would say that it's not too much given their cap space and how they've balanced everything out and spread it to different players. But when you got, now you have Jalen Ramsey, he's definitely going to be looking to get paid here soon. it's not worth it. I wouldn't pay any running back this amount of money just because, you know, the expectancy on what they can do is very short term. So, but what are your guys' thoughts on that?
Well, I would say that this contract is fine. I don't really see any huge issue with it. Obviously, he has had his struggles. He's had his injury problems. He's a very talented running back. He may be the most talented running back in the NFL when he's able to be on the field and be able to play effectively. We talked about the struggles the offensive line has had and the defense has had sometimes supporting Jared Goff. It's the same thing with Todd Gurley. I mean, whenever they're on the field, obviously they're a threat. I think that paying Todd Gurley any more than this or re-signing him may not be the best option for Los Angeles. But for this deal, I mean, that's fine. He's taking up less than 5% of the cap by himself, so he's obviously making superstar money, but it's not crazy. So I think that this deal is fine. I think that in the future, though, they'll definitely have to do some hard thinking whether they're going to bring him back and pay him what I'm sure he'll want after we've seen the tale of running back holdouts with guys like Le'Veon Bell and Melvin Gordon.
Going off what you said, I do think that he is worth it because, I mean, you look at the elite players in the league. There hasn't been a time when they haven't struggled before. We've seen Aaron Rodgers struggle. We've seen Ben Roethlisberger struggle, who's injured now. But I mean, yeah, he doesn't have a line that he used to. So and plus his bad knee, so he's not doing as well as he did last year, the previous year before. But that doesn't mean he's not worth it. You need a running back who can carry the load and score touchdowns, and we've seen that in the previous 2 years. So, and plus, like you said, it's not very big of a cap hit. Only $57 million. It's not that much. I do think he's worth it. But when it comes to like you said, the future contract he's going to want, if he thinks that he's going to want a contract bigger than this, he's going to have to show that he can still play consistently good. But beside that, this contract, I do think he's worth it.
Well, fair enough. And then we'll branch out into another receiver since we really haven't touched on them. We'll do two back-to-back here. Julio Jones, also on that team with Matt Ryan, 3 years, $66 million. I think this is just right because he's been putting up numbers every year since he's been. I think there's only 1 year where he missed significant time and he didn't do anything, but still. Granted, he's low in the touchdown category, but he's led in receiving yards multiple years. Even then, everything he does, he just doesn't cause any problems. He gets it done. He's in that same category of with Odell Beckham, except he has been clutch, has shown that, and that he can be a big factor. But at the same time, the Falcons aren't winning games like they should be. So I think he deserves it, but I think it's more on what he personally is, not so much what he brings to his team.
Yeah, in terms of personal value, I think you hit the nail right on the head. I think he deserves what he's getting paid. He may even be a little bit underpaid when you consider the very few truly elite wide receivers that there are, and I think Julio Jones does fall into that category when he's healthy. But as we talked about with Matt Ryan, he has a quarterback who just hasn't been able to get it done. A lot of that team around him just isn't supporting him enough to get them back to the Super Bowl where they were just a few years ago. So, I mean, I think that this deal is fine. He's only the 17th highest paid player in the league. We have far less than 17 people on this list, only taking up about 5.5% of the cap. Again, he hasn't been perfect, but I think that this deal is fine for him.
I do, and like you said, guys, I do believe that this deal is fine for him as well, because like I stated, elite players do struggle from time to time, mainly maybe like once or twice a year, or one or 2 years in their league. He hasn't been really performing this year as well as he used to. He's only averaging like 80 yards per game, 4 touchdowns the whole year, and 5 receptions per game. Like you said, the quarterback has not been getting it done. He has been making plays, though. I watched a few highlights of him. When he went against Jalen Ramsey, he has been making plays over the top. So I do believe that he is worth the money. He's now, I think, the second highest receiver in the NFL. So I do believe he's worth it. He just has to, play consistent and actually show the amount of stats that he should be putting up with this amount.
Yeah, absolutely. And the next two players we have, they're probably pretty easy. I think we all agree that it's just, they deserved it. Michael Thomas, 5 years, $100 million. I mean, every single year he's will be a year for him, I believe. Every year he's broken all his records from the year before. So, I mean, as long as he stays on track, I mean, he could even have one off year with just 1,000 yards even and like 6 touchdowns, and I'd be like, yeah, well, see what he's done before. We know he can do it again. So that one's pretty easy. Yeah,
that's pretty simple, honestly. When you have Drew Brees as quarterback, and pretty much any wide receiver can be good. When you have a good enough quarterback, any wide receiver can really go out there and perform. Only taking up about 3.5% of the cap, which, I mean, a lot of the Saints' cap numbers are because of Drew Brees making an exorbitant amount of money. But Breeze has deserved it when he's been on the field and healthy, as he's been most of his Saints career up until this year. And I think Michael Thomas is a good wide receiver. This deal is fine for him as well.
I do agree with everything you said, except Drew Brees has been injured for literally 5 games. He's had Teddy Bridgewater, and he's still been able to put up the numbers that he needs to be classified as an elite receiver for 5 years, $100 million. He's on pace for 133 receptions and 1,675 yards this year. And he's playing with Teddy Bridgewater. He's not as good as Drew Brees, but still, being able to put up that amount of numbers with a backup quarterback is ridiculous. That just shows how good he is and how much he's worth it for this amount of money.
Yeah, and that's one of those rare situations where it's not the quarterback making the receiver, it's the receiver making the quarterback. So they've really they've lucked out when they got both. So, and the final one here, easiest one, and this is someone that I saved for last just because I think Russell Wilson has deserved to get paid for the longest time, and I'm glad that it finally happened. 4 years, $140 million. I don't know if you guys really want to say anything, but I think he's the only person on this list that can really win a game entirely on his own, and that's
Right.
basically it. I mean, Todd Gurley, yes, last year was phenomenal, and the year before that, but I mean, him and Aaron Donald or might be the only two, and even Aaron Donald, I would really say, can take over a game at this point, at this level. So.
Yeah, I think it's easy with Russell Wilson. Obviously, he is the highest paid Seahawk by far because he's making more money than anyone else in the NFL in 2019, 13% of the Seahawks cap, but he is an elite quarterback. I mean, they've made 2 Super Bowls with him. I think they're a dark horse to go back to the Super Bowl again this year. They're a very good team, very easy choice. Russell Wilson is worth all the truckloads of money that you want to give him.
Yeah, I mean, when you have a guy on your team who's in the running for MVP, he's definitely worth all the money that you can give him. I mean, he's already thrown for like 1,945 yards and has one of the highest completion ratings in the NFL. That is ridiculous. I do believe that he's worth every single penny that the Seahawks can give him. And honestly, to me, this is kind of a bold prediction, but I do believe they are going to go to the Super Bowl with him. And he is going to win MVP because he is dominating the game right now.
Absolutely, and obviously that was just a few players looking at it, but we haven't looked at Khalil Mack, Von Miller, other players like that. But thank you all for joining us here on this new segment for The Big Hit. This has been Joey Chrisman, Elliot Hicks. I'm Jake Spagnol. Join us next time here on The Big Hit. See you next time.